So in this adventure of 52 Weeks of Why, I've had the opportunity to interview friends, neighbors, people that I've looked up to, people that I've just kind of met in passing. And this week I've got a friend here that I've had the opportunity to break bread with and sit and have conversations with about business, about fatherhood, about life. Even though he works in the same business that I do, it's interesting that the scope of our conversation stretches so much farther than business. And so I had to just have him on here to hear his why, because I feel like it will be impactful, not just for me, but for everybody who listens. But before I go into introductions, I do want to do a quote. And this one for me, I've done a lot of reading in the last couple of years of the Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius. And this one is from Epictetus, and he says, withdraw from things that are not in our power. Place the good and the evil in those things which are not in our control. And so this perspective of having a why and making sure that everything you do relates to your why, it also means that you're focusing your attention on things that are within your control and things that you know will further advance your why. We all get bombarded from multiple directions, and really focusing on that has helped me in my career. So my guest this week is Josh Mettle. I'm gonna just organically introduce Josh because I liked that when I did it last week with Bob. So Josh, I know you're in Utah. First, thanks for being with me. Second, tell me exactly where you are in Utah.
Well, I live in Park City, but the office is in Salt Lake, so we're located about 30 miles from each other, and it's northern Utah.
So in Utah, you have how many people that are working with you and or for you right now?
Oh, I think with the branches, the sub branches included, we're somewhere around 75 teammates.
Excellent. And that 75 that you have, has that been something that's experienced, or something that's happened in a relatively brief period of time, 3 to 5 years, or has it been a long time coming?
No, it's been over a decade, kind of a solid growth. You know, we kind of rebounded and rebuilt our business strategy after the recession, which a lot of people did. We were one of those stories where we completely shift directions, and in hindsight, completely grateful for the recession. But since then, and our new strategy, we've been consistently building.
Nice. So when you talk about your dynamic of the groups that you're overseeing, then I know that you've had like a good consistent core group for at least a few years now, though, right?
Certainly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the core, a lot of the teammates go back, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 6 years, and very few have left.
I love it. It's a sign of something, right? So you're also a dad and a husband. You and your wife have been together, if I remember correctly, for a long time. About how long?
15 years this year. That's right.
Nice. So, and your little ones are just a little older than mine, a boy and a girl. How old are they again?
Yep. Xander's 10 and Arya's 8.
So you're a little ahead of me, right? I'm 8 and 6, 10 and 8. We're just a couple years behind each other. So we're kind of in this same zone of parenting. You're a little ahead, right? Because you've got a little bit more sports activities involvement than I do with the 10-year-old, I'd imagine. But with long-term relationships that I think we both have learned that we have to foster and maintain. So without going too far into that, first, tell us your why.
Yeah, well, the why's evolved. I think it constantly changes. When I got into the industry, the why was to make money. I started at a mortgage shop called The Money Shop, which was a super classy. We did 125% loans, and we'd probably pawn your gun or your guitar too if you came in at the right time. It was aptly named The Money Shop. And I've talked to you about this before, Dawes, that I didn't come from a really educated or highly educated or highly wealthy family. A lot of my growing up was in a 400 or 500 square foot apartment, and lots of moving, not enough money for rent. getting money where we could for food, working at Mormon storehouses, using food stamps, all the things we had to do to kind of survive as a kid. So when I got into the mortgage industry, I didn't have any really high aspirations of why. The aspiration was to survive. The aspiration was to make money. And it was a couple years in when I kind of realized, oh man, maybe I should get my crap together, because this might actually be a career and I should start doing things right. So that was 20 years ago. My first day in the mortgage business was September 11th, 2001. Believe it or not, 9/11 was day one in the mortgage business. If ever there was a bad omen for a new occupation, I think I picked the day. I thought I ended the world as we knew it. But the good news is it's only gotten better from that day forward. I'm sure of that. And a few years in, I realized, hey, this is a real career. This is something that I can build on. I can build a team around. I can really build a business. I kind of always thought I was going to go back to school and get my MBA, and then that would result in me building some sort of a business. And I figured I could accomplish that inside the world of mortgage. So as we fast forward today, almost 20 years in the industry. I guess next year will be year 20. This is year 19. And really 10 years in kind of rebuilding or rebranding ourselves and moving into the niche space that we do, serving medical professionals across all 50 states. And as I've built the team, what I've observed is the personal accolades, the personal income, the personal, every dollar has like a nominal return on enjoyment. The first 100,000 was really fun, but the next 100,000 isn't as cool as the first 100,000, and so on it is as you kind of climb the ladder. And what I have realized is fun is watching that loan officer assistant that you brought in to do VOEs and just kind of very basic verifications and entry level admin stuff, and then watching them progress over 4, 5, 6 years, and then watching them hit a month where they serve 10, 12, 15 clients in a month and have just incredible. Not only have they created an economic well-being for themselves, but you see them get married, you see them have kids, you see them do all those challenges that I went through maybe 5 or 10 years before them, and certainly that's more rewarding. That doesn't get less rewarding, interestingly enough. The first loan officer you saw do that, and the last loan officer I saw travel that journey, they're just as fun. It's not a nominal rate of return. It just keeps getting, in fact, it gets more fun, because then you kind of can sit back and go, wow, man, that's like 7 or 8 that I've seen kind of come up through this path, and they're all just crushing it. So to answer your question, why, I've done a lot of reflecting on that in the last year, and it's really inspiration. I want to inspire everybody who's in our group to be aware that they are at cause of where they are in their life, whether it's great or whether it's crappy. They caused that, and I want to try and inspire them to live their best life.
I think it's a great choice of words that has the same. When you inspire, you will automatically have impacts. You will automatically have a certain number of adjectives that follow in suit with inspire, right? As a part of inspiration and being inspiring, these other things just kind of come along with that. So I know you do a lot of the same reading I do. We have a lot of the same mentors that we will never meet. And I think in hearing you use that word, is this something that came up out of reading, out of coaching, out of watching 2 or 3 of these people grow? Because it's a well thought out and articulated word, and I'm wondering how you arrived at it.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've been doing. I'm currently coaching with Tim Brahim and his group, which is the Leadership 360 coaching group, and one of the kind of journeys that Tim's taken us on and encouraged us to do, amongst many others, but is to really get into meditation. And so I've had a meditation practice for probably going back at least 3 years, maybe 4 years. And I remember I was in an event the first time I ever was forced to meditate. It wasn't a conscious decision, but we sat in this room and they said, all right, we're going to turn the lights off. They confiscated all of our phones, And we want you to sit at your chair with your eyes closed for 5 minutes and just hold still, don't scratch. And I thought that 5 minutes was like an hour and a half. It was the most painful, just so uncomfortable. I mean, there was zero stillness. You know, it was like Top Gun was flying. Was, what do they call that when he hits he buzzed the tower? You know, that my brain was
flyby.
Yeah, it was a flyby going on in my brain. And you know, over the last 3 or 4 years, I've gotten to the point where now my morning practice is between, you know, this morning was a short one at 25 minutes. The day before was an hour and 20. And I do a lot of guided meditations by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it was in one of those kind of quiet times, one of those meditations, one of those times where I was still, where I just realized, you know, like that's the one thing that still really inspires me, you know, is to have the ability to have an impact and inspire those that are around me. And it dovetails well into where we want to go. You know, we want to be top 3 mortgagee in Utah. Well, how do we do that? I got to find a lot of people to inspire. So it dovetails into, you know, where I want to go professionally and where I want this group to go.
I love hearing that that's how you arrived at it, because I'm a believer in the power of the subconscious mind. I love the idea that we can take certain concepts or questions that we have or things that we're struggling with, and not intentionally not think about them. But in those moments of silence, the answer to those questions just appear. However you believe they appear is completely subjective to each individual person.
Sure.
But regardless, when you plant the right seeds into your subconscious mind, it's amazing how those answers come, and they come better articulated and more clear than we could have ever done them ourselves had we sit and grind it out with a pen and a piece of paper to try to do it. So when Inspire happened, when inspiration came to you as a word and inspired you, was there, I don't know where this question's coming from, it just came to me while I was asking. So was there a mental image? Was there a color? Was there a light? Was there something that accompanied that? Was there an image of persons or people that you're inspiring, or was it a color, or was it just the word? Because I know sometimes it's just the word that just appears to you.
No, I think I was working on a couple of, it was a week where I had 4 or 5 presentations. And so I had, you know, our sales meeting, I had our all branch meeting, I was talking to 3 or 4 different realtor groups, and then I was also doing a presentation for a bunch of loan officers. So, you know, it was going to be a week where I was kind of preparing for, where I was going to maybe be in front of, you know, 300, 400, 500 people, giving out a message. And one of the meditations that Joe Dispenza does is he talks about identifying, you know, what's your highest purpose, and what are the things you want to be aware of and you want more of in your life than less in your life. And it was just one of those things where it came up that I thought, man, you know, what I really want to be to these groups, to these various groups, because my message is different to all of them, but what I really want to be is I want to be inspiring. And I want to inspire them I want them to leave there with something that's actually practical that they can go put to use. And then it just kind of hit me, you know, like you said, it was just kind of a download. And I'm sure people have similar kind of moments like that with prayer. They probably have similar moments like that with the 50-mile marathon runners. You know, there's going to be some real moments of profound clarity there. And it just hit me, and it became kind of a picture for my bigger why. So there wasn't necessarily a color, but it did, interestingly enough, have a lot to do with my speaking style and opening up and being a little more transparent, speaking a little bit more from the heart, because I think people, you know, when you communicate that way and are vulnerable in a way, that you really have an ability to connect and inspire. So that was kind of the whole circumstance around it.
Yeah, it sounds like, rather than, it sounds like the result of you being inspirational to the people that you're interacting with will empower them and energize them and inspire them to motion and action. It seems like it was accompanied with a feeling, right? The feeling as you're inspiring somebody, there's going to be a response, and it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's both the inspiration and also the resulting what happens after you inspire. Does that
For sure.
sound right?
Yeah, for sure. And what I'm aware of is that both you and me are going to make it out of this career, and we're going to be just fine, right? We're going to be able to take care of our children, and I don't know how you grew up, but they're probably not going to have a lot of the same financial challenges that we had as kids. But when we're gone, the thought is, what else did your life stand for? Who else did you impact? And so if I can, it's interesting, if you really kind of dial it down and think it through, it really comes back to, trying to save other little kids from having that kind of same tough economic experience I had as a kid, right? And you can't go back and rewrite, but what you can do is you can do the best you can to bring abundance, and you can bring people to action to improve their lives. And so really it goes back to trying to save little Josh in a way, but a lot of little Joshes with whoever I can run into contact with.
Yeah, for me, that's been a primary focus of my philanthropy, is being involved with specific groups that I see who have targeted youth, and especially underserved or underprivileged kids who need assistance. And I gravitate towards that because, not because I necessarily had the financial hardships when I was younger, but more because I want the world that my kids to grow up in, the community where my kids grow up, to be better. I want to help it improve, whether that's the kids or the employment or the town or the community or whatever it is, right? So yeah, I love that but the cool part is that it's both inspiration and a result, right? There's a result that's coming from that. So as you're getting the gears moving in the morning, I'm assuming based on your morning routine that this why is something that is going through your head, and that you're intentional about that when you wake up. Kind of help me how that gets your gears moving in the AM.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had kind of an awareness that I could kind of figure out where north was. Like, I never kind of woke up wondering which direction I should go. I just kind of always knew, just go that way. So I don't know that the why really set my path. The why just gives me in those moments of, what am I trying to accomplish here? Why are we putting all this energy in here? Like, what's the desired end result? And at the end of the day, the majority of what I'm trying to do now in my business is to inspire others. So, my morning routine's pretty scripted. Actually, not pretty scripted. It is scripted. I'm very early to sleep. I'm usually in bed by 7:30 and asleep by 8. I'm up at 3:30. In the morning, there's a vitamin routine. I love myself some amazing coffee, so I take the vitamins and the coffee and do all that, and then sit down for a meditation session. And not always is that meditation on that why, on inspiration. But oftentimes that comes up just in reflection of, what do you want to accomplish today? What are the big things on your mind? And from there, since you asked about morning routine, I kind of move into creating and really working on whatever is really important for our group, whether that's a marketing piece or an article or videos or some presentation we're going to do for realtors or LO trainings. And then it's gym. It's home to have a little breakfast, and then into the office for our morning meeting we do with the team. We do a gratitude meeting every morning at 8:15. So we all call in and talk about what we're grateful for a few minutes.
Yeah, I love that you said something there that's pretty cool about the why, that it's almost like a compass, a moral compass, a life compass, that rather than it being something that you are really hammering home with active thought, conscious thought, that it is this thing that you weigh all of your major decisions and all of your speaking and everything against, and you can always kind of make sure that you're facing the right direction and making the right decisions that align with that compass direction as you're going through them. That's a really, I mean, that goes back to Marcus Aurelius and Rowan as well, where they talk about having a moral compass. It hits home with me. Did I sum that up right?
No, you did. And I guess, we've all seen presentations where people get up and they give a presentation and you're like, wow, that was really cool information. But, that's not what I want to accomplish. There's a very definite line in the sand that's not what I'm aiming for. If I'm going to do a presentation, or I'm going to go into a meeting, or I'm going to go into a coaching session, it's not to fill up 30 minutes and to go, well, those were some really cool slides, right? Like, I want that person to walk away and go, hey, I got A, B, and C, challenge accepted, and I'm going to take action on at least one of those things. And so I think that decision that your main why, your highest use or purpose is to inspire, guides your interactions. It also, if you also identify that for yourself, you kind of can't walk into the office and be like, Dawes, I told you I needed that total cost analysis by 10 a.m., man. Like, what is the total cost, right? Like, it kind of governs the way you need to interject and to work with people. And I think that's important for leaders to keep an eye on as well, especially in our industry right now, right? I mean, it's 100, we're like 211 degrees. We're 1 degree away from boiling right now. So we got to keep our heads calm.
Yeah, and that's where it's especially important to have a why, to be aware of it and allow it to guide you, whether it's in an actual tangible morning written routine, evening written routine, whether it's a part of an active meditation, or whether it just simply acts as a compass for your behavior and your interactions. Having that acts as a personal checks and balances, right? As soon as you hear your voice go into that tone where you're like, oh, this doesn't align with who I'm trying to be or who I want to be, because you have a why, right? In the absence of that, you wouldn't have that little voice in the back of your head that says, this isn't who I want to be right now. So two quick questions just to kind of wrap up a little bit. So is there a point, whether on a daily basis or on an interactive basis, or at the end of days, when you feel that your why is fulfilled? Is the fulfillment of that inspiration on a speech by speech, presentation by presentation basis? Is it at the end of the day when you rest your head on the pillow? How do you reflect on whether you're successful at your why?
Super good question. In a branch, it's pretty easy to do, even in an area, right? Because you've got a benchmark at where someone was operating, and especially if you're coaching. I coach a few of the loan officers in my group, and I've got a record of where they started in their life account, and their marriage account, and their kid account, and their bank account, and their production account, and I can kind of keep track and see that progress. And it's really easy to kind of have that self-fulfillment on, hey, I can see the cumulative result of my actions over however many years of working and knowing this person. Their life's becoming more abundant. They're living a better life now than when they met me. And ultimately, that's the ultimate litmus test, is when somebody comes into your environment, when somebody's around you, does their life improve or not? And if you're creating an environment where people are flourishing and people's lives are getting better, then I certainly think, hey, I got to give myself a pat on the back and say, hey, you're successful. And not always, we all have ups and downs. I'm not saying it's all roses and sunshines. We have plenty of muck we have to work through too. When you're doing a presentation, it's a little different. The litmus test is not quite as easy to really know your impact there. But what I've found is, and I'm still really working on this, but if I can drop into my heart and I can connect and I can be vulnerable and I can really get people to see me, not just the words coming out of my mouth, but really see me and connect with me, then in most cases, I think that I've probably had some inspiration there. So that's more of a sense or an awareness or a touch thing. Sometimes I think, I really dropped into that place of heart and spoke from my heart. Other times I was just nervous and worried, and I was all in my head, and who the hell knows if that made any sense. So yes and no.
How about with the kids and with the spouse? Does that? I'm assuming that this carries over into your relationship and with your kids. Do you see? I think with children especially, we're more prone to actually get rewards either from teachers or from coaches. But are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, I mean, boy, kids are so interesting, aren't they? I mean, they've got their own little personalities and idiosyncrasies and issues they're working through. And I think when I think about it with kids, I think, just letting them know that that we weren't perfect as parents. We went through these same struggles. We had braces, and we and missed the winning shot in the basketball game, or the winning catch on the football game, and just kind of letting them know, like, it's all right. You're doing great. You're 10 years old, for crying out loud, bud. I got, in 30 years, you'll make a few more shots and make a few less mistakes. It's okay. So I think when I think about inspiring kids, it's that fine line between having an ethics presence, because I think parents need to have that. I think sometimes that can definitely get too far. No, you do not need a second root beer float. I mean, at some point we got to have some reality there, but at the same time, letting them know that making mistakes are okay, and letting them kind of find their way. I think that's a really fine balance that I try to play with. But I think that's, for me, that's what I would find inspirational as a kid. Love them, give them the ability to make some mistakes, and let them find their own way. And then tell them, of course, when they're doing a great job, right? You got to, I was talking to the principal of my son's school the other day, and he said, I'm not saying our teachers are perfect at this, but what we preach is, for every 2 times that you tell a kid he's done something wrong, you better have told him he did something right 8 times. And so that means if you're working with a naughty kid, you're going to have to look really hard for those 8 times that he did something good. But I try to have a similar type disposition with the kids. And my wife, I just tell her she's doing it right 100% of the time, and it's worked out so far.
Nice. Well, but I think that feeds back to like One Minute Manager, right? There's a lot of books that talk about leadership and parenting, very, very closely coordinated, that have the praisings always paired with the reprimands. Back to back, and that they have to be proportionate. You can't do everything that is a reprimand and no praisings, right?
Well,
wow, yeah.
Go ahead, bud. Sorry.
Well, I think it's the reward on my end, agreeing with you on the child piece, is that you get those moments where your teacher says, the child's teacher says, she did this really great today, or I watched her help another kid who had this issue or fell down or dropped their stuff. And those moments are because we don't really get to see a lot of that behavior as a parent in our interactions with them. And we're not ever in a real position to observe them in their own element. So you get to hear that from the teachers. That for me is always the big check mark in the box, right?
Totally true. Totally true. And, I was just reflecting back on, myself as a child, my son as a child, for sure, and a lot of the teammates in our group, telling somebody that they did a great job and they really knocked it out of the park. And man, I just, it's going to be exciting to see you grow and kind of get to the point where you're our number one in this role or that. And if you can compliment someone legitimately, we're re-listening, our team's re-listening right now to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Andrew Carnegie. And
I'm reading the book right now.
Are you
No
really?
Strange Coincidence. I'm
I'm
literally in like a third of the way through it, reading it again. Yep.
Yeah, and one of the thing that stuck out to me, there's a lot of things that stuck out, but one of the things that really stuck out was when you find a legitimate reason to compliment somebody, not to compliment somebody to get something, but a legitimate compliment to somebody. And then if you can communicate somehow that you see them bigger or better or larger or ahead of where they even see themselves, there's no amount of discipline or prodding that can get somebody to grow at the same pace as an honest compliment and telling them, man, Dawes, I just can't wait to see you next year when you shatter your record, or whatever that legitimate conversation is, because then that person just wants, it's like a magnet, right? They just want to They want to be that person that you saw them as, and they may not even have had the capacity to see them in that same way. So that's a ninja move for sure, but it's something I'm really working on.
So I had to get up and get this, my word for the year.
Oh, nice.
Which comes exactly from that, right? Elevating people and elevating myself, and those words are so powerful. I think Inky Johnson is the one who said he told his dad he was going to the NFL, and he came home the next day, and his dad had a bag packed. He's like, "Dad, why do you have a bag packed?" He said, "I'm ready to go. As soon as you sign your papers to go to the NFL, that's my bag. I'm ready to go."
That's bad.
And he said that vote of confidence from his dad, his bag is packed. He had so much belief in him that he said that resonated with him and rang so true with him. I think that was just an amazing thing. It rides right along with what you're saying, right? Where you get those empowering words of inspiration, elevation. Like I said, there's so many adjectives that follow along with inspire that I really love.
That's a beautiful
any
story.
final thoughts before we finish up?
Oh, final thoughts. I don't know exactly who our audience is, Dawes, but it's an interesting year. We're going to have, especially in the mortgage industry, we're going to have a lot of opportunity. That's not going to come without challenge. And I've just been giving a lot of thought and reflection to, what we've been hearing from Steve Jacobson, who's the CEO of Fairway, for those who don't know. And I think that real interesting question is, can we make it through this challenging time? And maybe you're not in the mortgage industry, and maybe you're about to get laid off. Maybe there's some bad economic stuff coming your way. Maybe your 401k is not looking so hot. But I think the question is, can we make it through this challenging year? I think we can, pretty much everybody can be aligned. This might be a challenging year. Can we make it through that challenging year? And whether it's, great challenges or bad challenges, can we be a better person through that challenge? I've been and I know you are as well, probably more so than me, but really kind of a student of personal development. And there's a lot of theory in personal development. It's easy to write a book. It's easy to think about, oh, I do that. But when the what hits the fan, and it's really the time to see, how have all of these concepts and ideas that I've been learning and trying to implement, well, now we have a real opportunity to test ourselves. So the message that I've been giving my team is, for us in the mortgage world, earning income this year isn't going to be our challenge. So nobody has to worry about that, right? The question is, can we make it through this year? Can we serve every client, like they were our only client? Can we make sure we're giving them the best possible advice we can? And can we create a stronger bond with our teammates and our family this year in one of the most challenging years we've seen than we have in the last, 5 or 10 years? And so that's really what's on my mind, is how do we keep our presence? How do we keep calm? How do we make sure we focus on relationships? And even if this is a really challenging year, make it through in a better condition, not a financial condition, but like, you just accomplished what you're trying to accomplish in terms of personal development better than you have in the past. So that's my closing thoughts.
I love that. I love the idea that we can continue to be better. Even in hard times, there's opportunity for improvement. The hard times are, of course, when you're pressed and you're stretching the rubber band, and you may act out of things that are not within your character. And those are the learning opportunities, right? That when you make those mistakes, when you're not on your A game, when you're tired and you don't perform in a manner that you're supposed to. I'd like to wrap up, but I want to piggyback one more thing off of what you just said. So something that has impacted my life in that regard is the term of a self-anchor, and having a self-anchor. And I love this analogy because an anchor, if you are the boat, your conscious and your body and everything is the boat, that self-anchor goes down and is rooted against something, whether your rock is your family or your God or whatever it is, that anchor is attached to something. But you, up there on the surface, if the wind shifts, if the waves and the tides start pushing in a different direction, that boat is going to move to all different areas around where that anchor will allow it to move. And so who we were 15 years ago, we may still have had the same anchor, right? But we may have been way as far south as that anchor would let us go. And now we've found ourselves as far north as the anchor. You know what I mean? And life just tends to allow us in our lives to move around. And that's okay as long as you still have that anchor in the right place and it's attached to the right thing. Those things, those movements of the boat are natural. Jim Rohn would call them the seasons of life, right? There's all different frames of thought that surround these changes that we go through, but they all are opportunities for us to do better and to improve. And again, the why for me is what connects that anchor to the rock. It's one of the most important links in the chain that attaches to the anchor. And just, I don't want to detract from what you said because it's so powerful, and I love that's your message, and it is inspiring. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's a tough time for both of us because we're both very busy, and I appreciate this time that I get to spend with you, and dinner that I got to have with you, and all the moments that we spend. We always come away from it going, okay, cool. I think I got something, right? And this is no difference from that.
You elevated and inspired me, Dawes. Thank you, brother.
All right, my friend. Thank you for being here.